So, I don't know if you realize this, but we are living through a very pivotal time in history called a Pluto return. A Pluto return only happens every 248 years, and the last year or so is the most intense part. The last time Pluto had a return, we got the United States, among other very pivotal changes on the world stage. And what happens during the last bit of that transit is we go, Pluto goes back and forth between Capricorn and Aquarius. And Pluto is about to go back into Capricorn for the very last time on November 1st. So that means this is our sort of final opportunity to finalize and learn all of the lessons that we are going to learn about Pluto in Capricorn. But here's the thing. I think most of those really important lessons that we need to look at collectively, that collective shadow that we need to look at as part of this transit, I think the world is mostly ignoring it, either purposely trying to avoid the information or are not getting the right information from the right sources. And I think this message is particularly important for people who were born in the United States or have found themselves living more or less permanently in the United States. Because if you're here, this is something that you are supposed to be looking at. This is part of your shadow because you're part of that collective. Now, not everyone is here on this planet to focus on the same thing or approach lessons in the same way. But if you landed here or you follow any of the same other people that I follow, then I would be willing to bet that you believe that how we respond to global events is part of our journey. One of the things that makes me concerned that we're, missing the whole boat here is that I kind of reached outside of my normal TikTok bubble because I was looking for a practitioner for myself. I'm looking for some new spiritual guidance with a new modality. So I started watching videos of creators I hadn't looked at before. What I keep seeing is these people, well meaning people, who are trying to give some guidance, some heart centered guidance on how to navigate the horrible, horrible event that is happening in the places that start with I and P. And as soon as they start giving that guidance, I realize that they don't actually know anything about the situation. And their guidance is probably directionally correct. I mean, it's probably heart centered and it's probably good general advice on how to handle a dark situation. But here's where the problem comes in. In order to understand the lessons that are going to be the only positive thing that could possibly come out of such a horrible situation. The only way we're going to learn those lessons if we understand how we got here in the first place. And if you are not seeking novel sources of information, if you are not doing a little bit of research, I'm not saying that you got to go get a PhD in the subject. I'm saying read a couple Wikipedia articles. Maybe look and see what book most people are reading. I'm not saying that you don't have to move into a student encampment. Like you don't have to dedicate your life to this, but just spend a little bit of time research. Look for new sources. Look for new news channels that maybe are outside of your normal viewing sphere. Because the lessons that Pluto in Capricorn are teaching us are all about power structures and what happens when power structures get too big and what happens when power structures are focused on something other than the good of the people. And I don't think enough people realize that what's happening over there is so incredibly directly tied to us here in the United States. How much your tax dollars and your politicians are involved in what's happening there. If you don't understand the events that led up to the creation of that place or those how those places exist today, you're missing those lessons. If you're following spiritual guidance that presents what's happening there as some family feud that's been going on for thousands of years, you're missing the lessons. I apologize if that makes you upset. If it does, you don't have to watch the rest of this video. You can move on. This isn't probably the one for you. That's okay. But if this makes sense to you, let's keep going. Like I mentioned before, if you're part of humanity, and especially if you are an American, this what's happening in that place, those places, that's our collective shadow. And we're meant to look at it. We're not meant to ignore it. We're not meant to ourselves away from it. This is literally your job as a human, to look at that and make a decision about whether you're going to accept it or whether you're going to try to do something about it. And Pluto moving into Aquarius usually causes those power structures to fall. So here are some things you might want to consider as we experience this last hurrah, this last time of Pluto being in Capricorn before it moves into Aquarius. Maybe do a little bit of research. You can start with Wikipedia. I'm telling you, Wikipedia will tell you a whole bunch of stuff you probably didn't know. And there are multiple genocides going on the planet right now. I would say that researching any of them would be a good way to investigate the shadow. But like I said, I'm focusing on this particular one that I've been talking about because it's so inextricably tied to the United States where I live. So I feel like as a priority, this is my personal collective shadow to be looking at. Seek out a couple of new sources. Look at someone who broke away from mainstream media and started their own channel. Yes, this could be positive or negative. You will have to use your discretion and use your discernment to decide which voices feel true to you. Gabor Mate is a great place to start. I would be willing to bet he's shown up on your FYP at least once. He explains the situation beautifully and has wonderful insights on the situation. Even if you just listen to a couple interviews with him, that would be like an excellent start. And here's the good news. So Pluto moving into Aquarius is all about a return of power to the people. Right now, the government isn't really doing what most people want it to do. So as the power is returning to the people, there is going to be a lot of support towards any action or initiative you decide to engage in that helps support that return of the power to the people. And I know it might feel a little bit scary, but just remember, this is our path. This is our path to spiritual growth, our path to growth as humans. This is what we're here to do. So it's gonna be okay. All right? It's gonna be okay. Don't be afraid to look under the hood. Okay? You can handle it. I know you can.